generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet. Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about Nosferatu, the new horror film that is snuck in right here at the end of the month before we head into 2025. Uh, if you are not aware, this is basically a remake or reimagining, so to speak, of a very, very old film. I think he came out in the 20s, if I'm not mistaken, but uh, we went and saw it. We're excited to give you our thoughts. We'll do non-spoiler first, give it a rating, and then we'll talk about some spoilers. So, I will say for myself, going into the movie, I was very, very excited. I have not seen the original. I do, it's on my list to watch, right? But going into it, it was completely fresh. I had no expectations. I knew, like, based on just talking with Sarah and also seeing other things about the original, it seemed like it was something to do with Dracula in some way, shape, or form. Although there are similarities, I do understand after doing a little bit of homework that they are not the same thing. They're close, but not the same thing. Um, Kind of what I picked up is that Dracula is more geared towards, romanticizing vampires, whereas this one is trying to keep them disgusting and repulsive. So, um, that's if you're wondering what's the difference, there's that. There's some similarities between the book of Dracula and what's going on here as well. So I don't know exactly where the line is drawn on what is lore for Nosferatu and what is lore for Dracula. So it's kind of hard for me to pick it apart. I did read the Dracula book a while ago, a couple years ago. I did watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I enjoyed. And so it's interesting to see the difference here. But I would say that I liked the movie. I thought it was really good. I thought the atmosphere of the film was really great. The cinematography of it was really great. Just the different colors that set different moods of what was happening in the shots. They had a star-studded cast that did really well. And that's also something I really liked about the Bram Stoker's Dracula. I know they're different, but again, comparative. That movie had a lot of big names as well. I feel like in today's modern society, these are fairly big names as well. So, um, yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought Nosferatu was cool, like the dude himself. I think his name is Orlok, Count Orlok. Is that double check my stuff here? Yeah, Count Orlok. I thought his character is really cool. I felt like anytime he was on screen, like I was really glued to him. I wanted to hear what he had to say. He had a very,
He
uh,
demanded your presence.
yeah, he had a very unique, like you said, presence. But even between his breathing, the way he talked, it was just really cool to see what he was gonna do next, so to speak. So that was great. Um, yeah, I don't know. I already said I really liked the actors, but Willem Dafoe, he did great. I did not remember that Aaron Taylor Johnson was in this movie, but he did great as well. Let's see. I did not realize that Johnny Depp's daughter, Lily Rose Depp, was in this movie. She was the lead actress. She did great. Nicholas Hoult, he plays Thomas Hutter, which is essentially the main, the main male character in this movie. And then another one that I recognized right off the bat was Ralph. I hope I pronounce his last name, Ineson or Ineson. He is the doctor in the film. If you are wondering who that is, He was also the dad in The Witch, which is another movie. I think the director or the writer, even if that's not the same person, uh, they also did that movie too. So it seemed like there was a fair amount of connections between the work that had been done in the past and this one, as far as pulling some good actors and actresses. So,
Emma Corrin, who is the mom to the little girls, she was the bald chick, Cassandra, in Deadpool Wolverine.
oh, cool. I feel like she had another cool connection to somebody else, but I forget what that connection was. I just saw it on Facebook like a day or two ago. But like she's a sister of somebody, or I don't know.
That I'm not sure. I can't confirm.
All right. Well, what did you think of the movie?
I would agree with what you've said so far. A couple things that I would add, that or just to reinforce what you've said. The coloring was really good. They had a lot of creative use of smoke. You can kind of see a little bit in my picture. That's why I picked this one. Um, a lot of people smoke cigars, or a lot of men do, I should say, in this film. And I feel like it just created a very hazy atmosphere to just kind of add to the dark and creepiness of everything that was going on. There was a lot of use of candlelight, of course, because we're in like the 1800s, so there's no electricity really. But the other thing that I want to touch on is there was a lot of not just monologues, but scenes where we saw multiple characters and the camera would pan in certain ways so you could see what was going on in the room, but they were continuous shots. It wasn't look at this person's face, then look at this person's face. It was one long shot. And so I really want to praise heavy on this film for the amount of attention to detail that they gave, that these characters were able to say all of their lines, multiple people even going back and forth in conversation or doing a separate monologue from time to time. Um, and just nail these lines and what they're not just standing still saying something, they're doing something in the room or whatever, all these crazy scenes. And getting them all in one take. Like, I'm not saying it was the first take, but getting them all in one shot of like, okay, this was exactly what we're looking for. And I feel like that takes a lot of skill to be able to get that and not to have to cut back and forth between different characters' faces and piecemeal things together. Um, so I think a lot of care went into making this film, and it shows.
Yeah, I think the director, uh, I should just clarify right now whether they're the same person or not, but let's see, yeah, same person. Okay, so, oh, and Bram Stoker was one of the writers. Interesting. I thought, oh, I guess he's just given credit. He's been dead for a long time, since 1912. But maybe because he had such a heavy emphasis, or he did a lot of the work in the past. Maybe he was just given a writing credit to, um, kind of like a in-text citation, quote unquote, in a way. But yeah, the director and writer definitely knew what he was doing with this film, and we know that. I think we could kind of tell that from his past works as well.
Bram Stoker wrote the original Dracula
Okay.
in 1897.
So I already mentioned The Witch, but also The Lighthouse is another movie that the writer director did as well, just to kind of add more to um, the fact that he knew what he was doing. So I think he did it. My guess is what was happening here is he made a couple of horror films and he was like, I'm ready to take that next big step and I'm ready to hit it out of the park. And I think that's kind of what he did here. So he knew that Nosferatu was going to have a big following to it for the people that are a fan of it of the past. He's going to want to deliver and put out a good film for it. So I think that's what he did. Again, I have not seen the original, so I can't say whether or not, things were added or taken out from the original. Didn't you say this movie was 2 hours?
2 hours, 12 minutes.
Okay, so something definitely had to have been added because the original was like an hour and a half. So there's that to it, but I don't know. I can't say whether something huge or significant was changed.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any of the originals or anything like that. I just know of Dracula, just like any common person would, I would say.
All right, what would you give this movie out of 10?
I'm giving it an 8. I feel like it was a really slow burn movie, but it kept the creepiness and the horror element alive throughout the whole film. The villain was intriguing. You wanted to know what was going to happen next. The cast, I think, did really well. And like I said, I'm still just really amazed at how well they got all the shots that they did. So I'm at an 8.
I think I'm at a very strong 7. That means it's above average for sure. I don't know. When I think of giving it an 8, my gut tells me that's a little too high for me. So, I think I'm gonna give it a strong, strong 7. Uh, I think they did exactly what they could with the material and make it, horror for modern audiences. I did like the way it looked. But I do agree that the movie was a little bit long. Uh, I thought to myself, I like, because again, I've seen Dracula. I feel like there was a lot more accomplished in the Dracula film that I saw for its runtime than what was happening with this one's runtime. As in, maybe there was just, I don't know. It at points it seemed like there was repetitiveness or just not completely concise as I would like it. But I don't know. That's just what I'm feeling. It's a solid 7 out of 10. So we'll switch over to spoilers and let's see. So the movie opens basically with the shot from the trailer where that girl is in her bed. She's basically freaking out, and then she's looking out the window. She's standing up, looking out the window, and she's basically pledging herself to Count Orlok. This is Ellen Hutter that I'm talking about. Lily Rose Depp's character.
I
Uh,
wish this entire scene was moved to later in the movie when she was telling her husband about what she did. Because by the time she was talking about this stuff and we were realizing that she was cursed and all that, I didn't really remember how this scene went because a lot of it was subtitled. So, like, yes, I read it, but it wasn't spoken to me. So, like, I didn't remember it as well.
Also, subtitles tend to turn Sarah off, so it makes me
Okay.
wonder if that kind of pulled you out of it a little bit in the beginning too.
Once in a while isn't a big deal. I just don't want to watch an entire film subtitled.
Right. So we get that to start with, and in my opinion, a very classic move. We see just the words Nosferatu on screen, a very creepy music happening, and then we cut to like actually getting the movie rolling a little bit with the plot. And that is that Thomas Hutter, he is about to get a very, very a nice promotion at his job. And the way to do that, or way to get that, I should say, is that he has to go off and meet with this Count Orlok, and the Count wants to purchase some property in town. And so if he does this and he secures the sale, then he will, get his promotion and be better off financially. However, him having to leave his what is it his wife? They're married yet, or they were they engaged?
They were married. They had just gotten back from their honeymoon, I think.
Oh, makes sense that they have the same last name. So Ellen really doesn't want him to leave. She's having these nightmares about the Count. She doesn't. I don't think she knows it's the Count. I don't know if she knows what his name is. Just that he's a being. Um, because I feel like if her husband would have said the name, she would have been like, "Oh my God." But she's scared of these dreams. She even like pours her heart out to him, saying, "Please don't go because of these dreams that are terrifying me." But he sees the dollar signs and he sees a great life ahead of them if they're able to, or if he's able to, make this pay off. So to him, he has to go, he has to, secure the sale of the property, and then, then he will quote unquote, um, I don't want to say deal with, that sounds so harsh, but be able to help his wife get through this process. It really felt like that was his attitude though about what was going on. Like he felt bad for her, but at the same time, he didn't really care because he wanted that money. So
Well,
he,
I think she was thinking of it kind of from a selfish point of view or standpoint because she just wanted him to be there to like comfort her and stuff, which we as the audience understand because she's plagued by this loneliness and melancholy and all that. But he sees it as this is going to secure our future, and if I don't do this, I'm going to be stuck with a really poor paying job. Like
right.
this is what's going to set us on the right track in life, so we don't have to be peasants.
Well, not only that, but we see behind Sarah, it's actually that scene in particular that I'm going to reference. We also know that Thomas has some debts, and he very, very briefly mentioned to Frederick that, hey, once I have this taken care of, I can pay you back. Frederick like hushes him really quick and is like, don't worry about it. Your financial stability comes first, kind of a thing. Seems like a really nice guy, a really good person to be helping out Thomas. But eventually, Thomas does take off. He goes to head towards the castle. He does come across like a little gypsy village. On his way there, the people are looking at him as if he's definitely an outsider. Even the innkeeper didn't really want him to stick around, but he offered to pay double for the night. And so he's like, okay, you can stay. And what appears to be a dream to him, but I think it was real, is
But
that
when he woke up from his dream, his boots were muddy.
right, and his horse was gone. Um, but what was this dream? The dream was, well, dream, quote unquote. It was that he followed these people that stole his horse, basically, and they took a naked virgin girl out. I think she was a woman, not like a little kid or anything like that. But they took this woman out to a grave, which I think they believed to be a. Did they think it was Orlok or just a presence that's cursed on them?
I'm not sure who was supposed to be in there. I just know it was some weird ritual.
Okay, so we're on the same page. So basically, they were, my guess is trying to offer up a virgin and then maybe try to kill this thing or whatever's inside because they open up the casket and, um, you know, they get all spooked about it because Harding, he yells because he's in shock about what's happening. Or Hutter, sorry, not Harding. Hutter is surprised by it, which causes them to stare at him, and then that's when he wakes up from the dream. But then when he gets out, outside of the inn, again, he, like Sarah said, notices that his shoes are muddy, and then his horse is gone, and so are all the people. They're all gone too. It looks like a ghost town. So the rest of the way to the castle, he has to go on foot. So he does that. Uh, As he's approaching the castle, eventually a carriage comes to meet him to take him the rest of the way. He gets to the castle, and it's pretty late
Which
at
was
night.
creepy because there was nobody in the carriage. It was just these horses running at top speed, but nobody controlling them.
Right, which is also a connection to the Dracula book, because that was one of the things I do remember from the book is that, as he's approaching the castle, he is approached by, this carriage with no driver, no nothing. So that was something that matched up for me. So that's kind of why I'm a little confused of what the difference is between the two. But um, it sounds like they're heavily inspired from each other. They're derivatives of each other. But so yeah, he gets in that carriage. It's taking him all the way to the castle. Count Orlok is actually pretty upset because he feels that Hutter is a little late. He's not on time. And Hutter thinks, well, we'll just deal with this in the morning, kind of a thing. He was hoping to be taken to his quarters. And Orlok was like, no, we're dealing with this now. It's just past midnight, and we're going to deal with the paperwork now. So this was kind of our first really big introduction to Orlok. Yes, he's kind of in the beginning a little bit with Ellen, but here, this is where we first really get to see him. And I thought this was a great introduction. I didn't realize he was going to look way more human-like to me because in Bram Stoker's Dracula, I feel like he looks a lot more like a vampire as opposed to this one. The only thing that really stuck out to me is the long fingernails. Um, I don't know. What
Well,
did you think about seeing his appearance for the first time?
in a lot of these scenes, we don't even really see him because it's so dark.
Yeah.
There's just a fire going, so you really kind of just see an outline, or you might kind of see that he's wearing like a fur hat, or might see his mustache every once in a while. It took a long time for us to actually get to see what does this person look like, or what does this creature look like. It wasn't until we saw way later that he's like, I'm gonna say kind of decrepit and like gross looking. Like spoiler alert, I know we're in spoilers, but just, skipping ahead a little. A lot of people get plagued later, right? And they have like open wounds and sores and stuff like that, and that's kind of what he looks like.
Yeah. Because we do eventually get to see a little bit more of his skin and stuff. But yeah, so they do their little thing there. Something that's important in this scene is that Orlok asks to see Hutter's locket, which has a picture of his wife, but Orlok understands that Ellen, basically pledged herself to him in the very beginning of the film. And so he actually keeps the locket, doesn't give it back. Uh, Hutter has been staying here for I think a day or two or something. Like, I don't think it was just an overnighter, but he he notices things are weird, and so he goes running through the castle trying to find even where the Count is. Can't find him. It's very unsettling just being there on his own, and he eventually comes across the casket, and so
But I think he's trying to look for a way out. He's trying to leave,
probably.
but everything's locked, and then he finds the casket.
Yeah, he finds the casket, he opens it up, uh, and that's when he sees, the Count inside of it. The Count gets up, and
Don't forget the fact that the Count's naked.
yeah, he's butt naked. Yeah, there is a bit of nudity in this film. This is definitely one of those scenes where we get that. But he wakes up, he's not happy about what's going on, and basically chases after Hutter with his dogs, or wolves, whatever they are. Um, Trying to remember. Oh yeah, basically Hunter gets chased through the castle until he gets to a window, and doesn't he jump?
So he shuts and locks a door in one of the hallways, so he's safe from the wolves. But then, like, the shadows convince him to open the door for whatever reason, because Count Orlok kind of controls the shadows. They talk about that a few times throughout the film to beware of the shadows. Um, and so I think this is when he like first gets bit or something like that, and he lets the dogs chase or the wolves chase him, and that's when he goes out the window. Oh, no, it's that he woke up thinking like, "Oh, is that a bad dream?" And then the dogs are there. That's what it is.
Hmm,
And then he goes through the window and out into the river.
gotcha. So yeah, another important point here. He got bit right in the chest. He likes to show people that a lot. But yeah, he jumps out the window
This was
and
the second time he got bit in the chest, I think, because once was after signing the papers and once was this.
gotcha. He floats downstream a bit, and he eventually gets found by a random woman. Let's see. Orlok is gonna want to go to the town, eventually see his property, but really what he's more interested in is heading to the town and finding Ellen. So we do get a section of the film where he's being transported by boat. The people on the boat believe that there's a plague going on because there's rats all over the place. I mean, they find a bunch of rats in the casket, but also um, Orlok is also, doing his thing, biting people and whatnot. Um, while he's traveling, because eventually he gets there, and that's where the end of the movie really takes place. We also meet the doctor character, not Willem Dafoe's character, but the doctor played by Ralph Ineson. At first, he's checking out, seeing what's going on with Ellen because it seems like she's, you know, uh, sleepwalking at night. Looks like she's having seizures or something's going on with her, and people don't know what the heck to do. And so the doctor comes and sees her. He likes to use chloroform basically to shut her up when she's doing her talking spells in her sleep. And it's just too much for him. So that's when he taps to Willem Dafoe's character to come and check out things. He's said to be kind of a kooky person where he was a professor and then he was basically let go because he liked to study alchemy and whatnot. His name is Professor Elbin. And so he agrees to go and take a look at what's going on with Ellen. And he does believe that something crazy is going on here. Um, while they're all trying to investigate this stuff, eventually Hutter arrives back into town. Uh, things are wrong with him, right? Because he's bitten a couple of times, he's exhausted. But Ellen is happy that he's back in town. And then, of course, Orlok eventually gets to the town as well. Before we carry on with this, is there anything that you thought was noteworthy of that in-betweenness?
Just that while Thomas was gone, Ellen was staying with their friend Frederick and his wife and daughters, and that the wife is pregnant. And so this family seeing all this crazy stuff going on between Ellen and Thomas, they're not happy about it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because that's eventually they get intertwined with all this craziness too. Um, when Orlok's ship arrives, it basically crashes into the port and releases a whole bunch of rats into the city, which makes everybody concerned about the plague.
Do you
Um,
think it crashes because Orlok killed everyone on the ship or like ate all of them?
there's a good chance. I didn't even think about that because, like, why would people crash it, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Hmm. Uh, Tons of rats are there. Like I said, it concerns the people of the town about the plague, but um, the professor, I believe, he's like, well, I mean, yeah, there's the plague, but there's something else going on here too. This just isn't no normal plague. So we got that going on. Oh, one other thing, I guess, while he was on his way on the boat, that's kind of important, is there's kind of like this follower dude that's worshiping Orlok or just wants to be his best friend kind of a thing. He's a dude that's in the asylum and he eventually he does a lot of weird things which causes them to like tie him up and stuff so that he doesn't harm anybody. But then he tricks somebody into like getting real close to him and he bites and kills them and he's able to escape the asylum and he is supposed to he's hopeful. I think his name is Knock. No, not
Yes,
Knock. It
it
is.
is.
Um, Knock is hoping to eventually meet this Orlok, be like his number two, so to speak. Um, where do we go from here? So Orlok meets up with Ellen and basically says, "You got 3 days to get your act together, and today counts as day number one." Because she wants to be with Thomas and not him. She made this swearing to him that she regrets. But he basically tells her, "You got 3 days to figure it out. If you don't within those 3 days, bad things will happen. People will die. Blah blah blah." So that's when Frederick's family basically dies. Orlok goes to their house. I was surprised, and I feel like this is becoming a little less rare to see in horror films. But we do see on screen Orlok murder children. We do. Uh, I feel like that used to be a thing where off screen was what was accepted, but there's been a handful of movies as of late where we just flat out see little kids being murdered. So,
Which it
um,
was interesting because the mom was killed after that, and her death was not on screen.
yeah. So there, I think maybe that's one way to heighten the horror of the film in a way, because again, because although I can respect the horror of the past, those kind of movies don't tend to creep me out or scare me just because of the difference in horror, I guess, that I grew up with. But um, I think that's a way to make the older story feel more horror-like for our generation. But yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. You may be wondering, well, why did Frederick not wake up and go and help them and defend the family? Because he went to bed with a gun. I thought that was pretty interesting. But when Orlok got there, he basically like placed this curse on him to not wake up.
I missed that.
Yeah, he said something like "Do not wake," and then the wife was like the kid started screaming. The wife was trying to wake him up, but he just wouldn't wake up. Which I'm surprised because she rolled him over and he had the gun. I'm surprised she didn't just take it from him. Like, you're not gonna wake up. I'm gonna take this pistol and I'm gonna go do my thing.
I
But
had wondered that too, but being that it was like the 1860s, maybe she didn't even know how to use it.
maybe. So those children, well, everybody in Frederick's family are basically murdered by Orlok. There's a funeral scene. Uh, this eventually, well, 'cause that was okay. Day one was that's day two, and then day three eventually comes around. Um, the
And this whole
professor,
time, people are just dying all over the place in the streets. Like there's constantly dead bodies and dogs chewing on things and rats everywhere, and it's just you can tell based on the what's going on in the streets that like they can't even keep up with the people dying. They're dying so fast.
and what I thought was interesting, I don't know if they made this apparent in the film or not. Maybe I just missed it, but something that's important here, in my opinion, is that Thomas and Ellen had a cat. And from what I've heard from history is that during the plague, the people that had cats were less likely to get the plague because the cats fended off the rats. And so I wonder if that's kind of what made the professor think a bit more that something, more cursed, mysterious is going on here um, because they had a cat. The mice weren't coming into their house.
It
And
could be because I think the night or the day that Ellen and Thomas had to leave, that was when I think that was when the wife got the plague, wasn't it? Or when she was being chewed on? No, they were still there because the two girls were sleeping in the same bed, nothing sexual. They were just sleeping in the same bed as two friends or whatever because it's tough times. Um,
well,
but
she's
when
also
she
been
woke up,
requesting to not be alone.
yeah. But when she woke up, being Ellen, that's when she saw her friend being chewed on by rats. So why didn't the cat defend against those rats?
But was she at her own house or was she at their house?
She was at their house, but they had brought the cat with them.
Oh, they did?
Although I never saw the cat leave with them to go back home, but yeah, they had the cat in the carriage when they went there in the first place.
Oh, yeah, I remember that little thing. Huh. I don't know. Maybe that just debunks what I just said about the cats. Thanks. No.
Well, maybe the cat just wasn't in that room.
Yeah, maybe he was
She was protecting Thomas.
maybe the cat was told to not awake by Orlok. Maybe. I don't know. It's what makes us sleep. But the professor eventually figures out that there's this, creature thing like Orlok. He does name drop Nosferatu a handful of times, and they eventually go and find the sarcophagus or coffin, whatever you want to call it. It's the picture behind me, and
Well, before they go and find that, I think it's important to note that Ellen and the crazy professor had like a very secret conversation about how basically only she can stop the count and that it's all up to her. So the professor knows that they're going to see the coffin and that it's not going to do anything, that they're not the ones who are going to make any changes.
I didn't catch that. But that's pretty interesting. It makes sense.
That's why later when Thomas realized that the coffin didn't have Orlok in there, he's like, "You knew this whole time. You didn't tell me." Like, that's why he's running through the streets to try to help his wife because he realized that he was set up essentially.
Gotcha. I thought it was just that he got there and he was like, "What the heck?" I didn't put that together. But what's important here also is when they go and they find this, coffin, they open it up and right away stab into it, and it's actually that little follower dude, Knock. He's actually laying in there instead of Orlok. So I think he dies based on what happens.
I'm pretty confident, and if not, they do set him on fire, so
That's true,
that'll do it.
as you can see from my background. Um, so yeah, then Hutter runs back to the house. We see as he's running back to the house, Orlok does approach Ellen, and like you said, she's the only one that can take him out. And so there's kind of there's this scene. It's a little sexual, but I think it's more or less him sucking her blood because I mean she is naked, but it's very similar to the scene when Orlok was sucking the blood of Thomas as well. But the problem here that ends up happening for Orlok is that while he is distracted by Ellen, I think he's kind of in love with her. Um, Based on what she swore to him. But he's kind of blinded by all this stuff, and the sun rises. And so the when the sun rises, it kills him because he's not supposed to be out in that light. And then he just kind of falls over on top of her. I believe she's dead as well. Thomas shows up and sees them both dead, and then the movie ends. So it's kind of a abrupt ending.
I think it was kind of weird how the whole beginning of the movie, the doctor thought that she was having these convulsions and stuff and these like nightmares because she had too much blood.
Yeah.
They mentioned her having too much blood a lot of times. And I wonder if that's part of why Count Orlok liked her so much was because she had so much extra blood to give.
I thought it was interesting how easy it was for him to stab right through her arm.
That was
Like
gross.
he one-handed that sucker and was just like, whoosh.
Yeah, that was when the professor was trying to point out that she was um not hypnotized, but like she was succumbed to like a some sort of ghostly realm that she was talking to uh the count through or something like that.
Well,
She
yeah,
was
because she
possessed. That's what I'm looking for, the word possessed.
he wasn't reacting to the pain either.
Yep.
He's like, she can't even feel it because she's off in La La Land, basically.
Yeah, that was gross. I had to look away.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else super important in this movie. Um,
We
there,
did see Frederick die. This was before Thomas went to go find the Count. He was going to find Frederick to, I don't know, either ask for his help or check in on him or something. But they found him at the cemetery, basically holding his dead wife's body. And he had succumbed to the plague also.
yep. There was a lot of tension also between Thomas and Ellen at times. I mean, there was even a scene where she was telling him that, uh, you know, this other being Orlok, was able to please her more than Thomas has ever done, which I don't really know how it unfolded that they just kind of whip it out right there after her saying that to him. Like, I don't understand how that gets him in the mood for that kind of a thing, but I guess it's more of a I'll show you, but
I think that's what it was,
yeah,
but
I
it
think
was very
it's so weird.
unusual.
Yeah, because like, I mean, I don't understand why at that point, why would she want it? It's just bizarre. I don't know. Maybe I just don't get it.
I I think it's let's just say it's a BDSM thing.
Probably, probably. Um, Trying to think if there's anything else to really bring up. Again, like we said, it was the atmosphere was great. A lot of their, I will say that there's a decent amount of just atmosphere horror, but there's also a decent amount of jump scare horror. Um, I feel like that's not super necessary, especially when they're trying to, remake a film. I'm guessing didn't rely on jump scares because that's what today's cinema relies on most of the time. But yeah.
It's
Anything
creepy.
else that you want to mention?
Nope.
Alrighty. Well, that was our discussion on Nosferatu. Again, Sarah gave it an 8. I gave it a 7. So we do recommend going to see the film. It is an IMAX, which was pretty cool. I feel like the sound for the movie was very, very good seeing it in IMAX. So if you get the chance to see it in IMAX or a premium showing, because I know for in our area we have a theater that's not IMAX, but it's considered premium for its sound system. Um, that might be worth going to see. That way, it's a little bit more heightened of an experience. But if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drop us a like if you like the video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on Nosferatu. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.